Welcome back. We have discussed in the previous interactions about how the structure of the team is decided and what are the different types of structures are possible, how the structure was affected by the choice of the strategy of the product lifecycle. Now we look at the fact that once we put together the team, each person having different psychological setup as per the MBTI tag and having different sets of skills, is still sticking to the point that the product development team has to be multifunctional in nature. So each person may be coming from different part of the organization. Probably the part of the organization may be abroad. That means geographically distributed. We also know that if you put together a set of people in a team to play cricket, it's essential that each knows the other person very well, each knows other person's strengths and weaknesses very well, so that in the moment of need, they complement very well with each other. There are some bowlers, there are some batsmen, there are some excellent fielders, there is a wicket keeper, and a person to coordinate the whole thing, the captain. There are also all-rounders. The more the all-rounders in the team, the stronger the team becomes. That's what is akin to what we call multifunctional teams. But at the same time, they understand each other's strengths and weaknesses. So when we have constituted the product development team, each person coming from with different skills and different location, it's not necessary that the team members already know each other. Therefore, it rests on the upper management to build the team, which we call as the team building activity. The team building activity is to enable them, each team member to know others fully well and get along with each other so that when actually they start functioning to design the product, they're able to gel well, complement each other, and work together. So we will focus this discussion on that aspect. It has been recommended that we use certain formal methods of team building, which are called as the team building activities. So when we use a systematic formal method, it becomes more and more effective as far as the team building is concerned. So if you want to formally define what these team building activities are, these are the activities that help the upper management and the team members, help the upper management to enable the team members and help the team members to come together in order to learn the team spirit and other aspects of team activity through certain activities which are of a recreational nature. An act of recreation is readily a thing that would draw the attention of the people, as we know. A play or a cricket game would draw more readily people together than a serious economic activity or serious industrial activity. Because recreation is akin to arouse motivation, interest in the people. And moreover, the purpose itself is to build the team. There cannot be better than a recreational activity. So therefore, these team building activities, which are most often are built around certain recreational games and similar activities, have the potential to enhance the ability of the team as a whole to perform better. So what are these characteristics of activities that would qualify to be put in there for a team building activity? In a team building activity, there has to be a clear goal or a set of goals which are not obvious. That means these goals should not be so obvious as to be solved by simple inspection or previous knowledge, so that it does not become uninteresting. There also has to be a task in the team building activity which requires the team cooperation. Ultimately, the purpose being is to bring them together Unless there is a task that requires the people to work together, the purpose would not be served. In addition to the requirement to cooperate with each other, there also has to be a requirement for someone to take leadership in order the game progresses. So therefore what happens is that there will be somebody, if there is somebody who has leadership qualities, he tries to come forward and tries to assume the leadership position in order to result in the team's success. So we will be able to identify the leaders also. And also there should be a risk for failure. There has to be some inherent risk for failure. It should not be the case that the only solution to the problem or the activity is a grand success. There also has to be a possibility of the failure, like a cricket game can be lost. So in that case, what happens is that there is a purposeful effort and there is a willful activity to succeed. So if not fully, there must be some level of assured success, but there must be a chance of partial failure which the team will strive not to incur. It also should not be part of the everyday job or an actual project. That again is a defeater. If it is part of the actual project, which is what is the development of the product, then again it brings in the seriousness and removes the interest component in the activity. Also, if it is part of the everyday job, people are already aware of it. For example, you build an activity for team building to bicycle around the campus, 1 or 2 trips. If the day-to-day activity of the employee already includes bicycling, he would have already done it in the morning, and probably one another repetition may not add to interest. It may not really bring in any team building activity. So it has to be something new, which people do not normally do day in and day out. It is essential that we put one facilitator to help guide the team and whenever needed introduce a catalytic point or acts like a catalyst, so that there is always an activity momentum in sufficient quantity and there is nothing like something like kind of a stopover or completely coming to a stall such as like that. There also has to be, in addition to facilitator, an independent observer. This independent observer may either be chosen from the team itself or another person may be recruited. And this independent observer has the responsibility of recording the performance and responses of the team outside the heat of the battle. He should not be getting involved in the heat of the battle, but it should be a kind of a neutral observer trying to note down how the team is progressing in team building activity. Also, we need to have a forum to discuss the activity, analyze the successes and failures, such as like for example, post-activity meeting probably is required. Either in-person meeting or nowadays online meetings are possible. A forum may be there wherein the facilitator initiates the discussion with the help of the information collected by the observer and encourages the team members to comment. So when a team member is given to comment on a particular failure of the team, he always would have something to say because he participated. So that way a scope emerges for analysis and hence a learning point for where probably they may not make the same mistake in the actual team activity when they do the product design. In order to promote further and better activity and better performance and better effort, interest to achieve excellent possible team building effort, best possible team building result, a competitive environment also may be built around. How one would do that? One would do that by introducing a competition among the teams and announce a prize for best effort either within the team. Each person in the team, each team member would be given certain marks by the observer based on the assessment of the performance and participation in the team building activity, and based on the score obtained, the best top two or three are given prizes, which further improves the final performance. There are several such team building activities and techniques recommended. One of them, called as the Tangrams game, is known to have the best possible effects and most commonly used. So we will discuss that, the so-called Tangram game. The game of Tangrams essentially consists of a mathematical puzzle. In other words, Tangram itself is a mathematical puzzle, and in the Tangrams game, there is a geometric puzzle comprising of several fundamental geometric shapes known as tans or tans. You can easily understand an individual tan as a polygon, maybe a triangle, rhombus, square, rectangle, and so on and so forth. So, geometric shape. So, what is the goal of the puzzle? The goal of the puzzle is to construct different shapes by putting together side by side these tans, that is geometric figures such as like a square, triangle, circle, and others such as like a shark shaped one, mountain range shaped tan, bridge type of tan. So there's no limitation. In fact, it is left to the imagination of the facilitator as to what kind of a tangram, what kind of tans he designs and fabricates and brings to the table for conducting the Tangrams game. There's no limitation. Okay, a lot of scope for variety. So all that you have to do is, speaking in terms of the computer design or transformations, they may translate, they may rotate, they may flip, and then put them together, juxtapose them, so as to finally achieve another figure. So a square is there. Can you put together a square, a mountain range figure, and a bridge figure to come up with a new figure? Right? So it's not really obvious, because there can be multiple solutions possible, and each Tangram game may have different sets of tans. So therefore, the final possible solutions are not predictable. And since there's a time limitation, there's an intense need for and compulsion for each team member to motivate himself to stand up to the requirement and try to come up with creative thinking to put them together in different shapes. Generally known tans in Tangram games are supposed to consist of a square, a parallelogram, and 5 triangles, but this does not have to be always the case. So when it is the case that the Tangram game has 1 square, 1 parallelogram, and 5 triangles, these 5 triangles are typically made to have different sizes. 2 of them small, 1 of them is medium, and the remaining 2 are large. For example, we can depict one set of tans in a Tangram game, as we just now said, like this, where we can see that there is a triangle here, and a triangle, and a triangle, and a triangle. And here is another triangle, whereas here we have trapezium, and we have here a square. So 7 tans together constitute the Tangram game here. For example, these tans could be put together to make 1 square shape by juxtaposing these in this fashion. It's also possible, as one might predict, to get different shapes by arranging them in different configuration. However, it is important that the geometric figure, which may be connecting with a physical feature in the nature or any physical entity, must have a meaningful output. It's not that anything could be brought out. For example, square has a meaning, and similarly other shapes where each shape could be meaningful. So the ultimate decision to certify whether the shape obtained by juxtaposing or combining or each combination rests with the facilitator. So if he approves that it is a shape, it is recorded, 1 point is recorded in favor of the team that obtains that particular shape. So let's elaborate a bit on how this Tangrams game is played. The facilitator is going to show a shape which is known to all the players. Or you start with one player in the team and a known shape is displayed to the player. The player is then going to attempt to reconstruct the shape by manipulating the TANs in minimum possible time. So we are explaining here one mode in which the Tangrams game can be played. So here the criterion is how minimum a time that any player would take to construct a given shape from the TANs. Once the facilitator shows the shape of a particular figure to the first player selected in the people sitting around, the team members are sitting in a circle, and one of the players starts with one of the players, and that player is shown this shape. The player is going to attempt to get that shape by arranging the TANs one beside the other in different configurations. Obviously, it's going to take certain time for him to obtain the shape shown. Now, once the first player completes it, then another shape is shown to his besider, and he is going to take his own time. These times are recorded against each team player. And how do we build the team activity then? A set of TANs are provided to each member of the team, each of different color. Now, one set is provided to each team member, and now they are asked to, so the first player, when he tries to make the shape with the help of the TANs, it provides a time measure as to how long he is taking. The next activity of allowing them to mix the TANs by borrowing a TAN from his besider and lending one TAN from his set to the besider, there is going to be camaraderie discussion between them, a kind of a team activity, and the mixing of the TANs will take place, and resulting in the forcing of them to interact with each other in order to complete the task. So this is what is now resulting in the final objective of team building. Since they are required to maximize the number of shapes they need to obtain in order to get the maximum score, a win-win situation is what they try to look for and try to exchange the TANs, and thereby resulting in communication, team building activity. It is essential that we evaluate the psyche of the team as the product development process progresses, or in the sense, the team building activity we discussed till now is expected to build an excellent interaction between the team members, which they will take forward to be again utilized in the actual product design process. Now we come to another topic of how do we evaluate the team. As a team, constitution of different members. One essential step in evaluating the team is to evaluate the psyche of the team as the product development process progresses. Certain team issues may set in, which is natural to human beings, and they also may not get resolved during the progress of the product development process. So in such cases, there are certain evaluation tools exist in the form of questionnaire, which we expect the product development team to fill up periodically. Then based on the results, based on the answers given by the team members and the evaluation of how they gave the answers, certain action items may be proposed. So as far as the team evaluation form is concerned, which may be filled up both during the team building activity, for example, Tangram game, as well as the product development process, the team evaluation form may have a format such as like this. So what is the summary of the team development is what is being documented here. what is the name of the team, the date the team building activity was conducted, and there are several areas defined here, in each of which the performance of the team is recorded. Each of these areas indicates one necessary trait of a successful team. For example, unity is one successful trait, or one trait that assures success in the team. Unity may be defined as the degree of unity, or cohesion, or we-ness of the team members. For example, if you look at a group, the so-called group, it is just a collection of individuals or subgroups. There may or may not be any group feeling. So in such case, we can say that the team finally remained to be a group only, but did not get converted into a team. Team would have a unity, cohesion, we-ness, whereas the group would be only a collection. So we have our purpose of conducting the team building activity was to take the team from what was a group to a team. So did we succeed in that? Is what is measured and documented in the unity area. So was it just a group, or there was some group feeling, or there was a movement from group to team? And unity is going to stem more from external factors than from real friendship. Is it the case? That is, unity came because there was a facilitator who was somehow understood by the team members as probably future boss, who would use some of the observations for evaluation of an individual for performance appraisal, and hence artificially they built it, or there was a real friendship indeed. Also, there may be an observation, group is very close, there is little room or left need for other contacts and experience. Finally, strong common purpose and spirit based on real friendships, group sticks together. So you can see the gradations in the level of unity. Least unity, best unity. So therefore we can record it, and the observer can make the comments and clarification, give a ranking from top to bottom, tick whichever is the true observation as far as the unity constraint characteristic is concerned, or unity area is concerned. Similarly, we can talk about the self-direction, which we can define as the group's own motive power. So on one end we talk about little drive from anywhere among the members to the best scenario where there was initiation, planning, execution, and evaluation come from the total group. So therefore the least expected is the best scenario one can think about. Similarly, the group climate, which means the extent to which members feel free to be themselves. So a group is indeed an excellent team only when they are cohesive. At the same time, each person's individuality is respected, which we noted earlier also. So if the climate is such that it inhibits good fun, behavior, and expression of desire, fear, and opinion, then it is not going on well. On the other hand, if members felt free to express themselves, but limit the expressions to the group welfare rather than making unnecessary comments, then the best seriousness, at the same time individuality, have been respected. So therefore we are talking about how well they progressed in this direction is what is being assessed here. Similarly, communication, which is the manner of expressing ideas, views, and opinions. Was there very little discussion occurring, or was there communication that was open and two-way, and discussions are lengthy enough and deep enough? So how far they progress in this direction? Distribution of leadership is the extent to which leadership roles are distributed among the members based on the context. One end, we may see a situation where none of the members tried to take any leadership roles, which is very bad. On the other hand, we may see a situation where all of the members of the group tried to share the leadership responsibilities based on the context, which is the best and most desirable. As far as the distribution of responsibility is concerned, which is the extent to which responsibility is shared among the members, On one end, we may see that everyone tried to get out of the jobs by trying to throw the responsibility on others' shoulders. Whereas at the other end, we may see a more desirable scenario of responsibilities being distributed and carried out by all members. They take initiative, and then a welcoming scenario, they come forward to take the responsibility wherever they feel that they can serve is what is the most desirable. Therefore, the arrow is in this direction. We can list few more traits which make up the best team for product design. Problem solving, which is the group's ability to think straight, make use of everyone's ideas, and decide creatively about its problems. In which case, the most desirable is good pooling of the ideas and orderly thought. Everyone has ideas and they are used to reach the final plan. Whereas the least expected, something that means nothing has happened through group building activity, team building activity, is when there's no thinking as a group or not much of it, and the decisions were made very hastily, and the groups let the leaders do most of the thinking and others simply kept mum or did not participate at all. So again, the progression is this arrow direction. In the conflict management, whenever there is a team activity, particularly product development process, there is always a scope for situations of conflicts. And in fact, the presence of conflicts indicates that people are doing the deep diving, going to the sufficient extent of depth. In such cases, how the group deals with the conflict can be observed by the facilitator and the observer and can be recorded in this particular area. They may say either that group ignores or avoids disagreement to detriment of tasks, which is the worst, or on the other side, the differences were entertained, they were presented, they were thrashed out, that is, they were discussed throughout towards sound understanding and usually acknowledged in the decision making. So there is a kind of a tendency to take responsibility in this, whereas here there is a tendency to avoid. And in between also there are certain gradations. So based on what was actually observed, one would tick one of these where they stood in this particular area. As for the decision making is concerned, where how the group is arriving at a final decision is observed, one may observe at one extreme that one or two members of the team led and dominated all the decisions, which is the least expected. The other side, on the other hand, decisions, if they are reached after thorough consideration of options and consequences of each possible option expressed by each team member, that indicates a more holistic scenario, and so are the gradations in between from the least to the best scenario may also be observed and recorded. Finally, we talk about the group's self-evaluation. A group or an individual must always be ready to do self-evaluation. Without self-evaluation, there is no striving for better performance. Therefore, we observe here how the group reflects on its own effectiveness. Is there any kind of continuous effort to see where each individual is reaching in his task and where the team is reaching in its task? One should not be pessimistic, but at the same time, one should have the boldness to be critical about his own performance. So, on one hand, we may see the least expected scenario of little or no discussion of the team performance at all. On the other hand, we may see what actually is the quality of a team which takes them far in the path of success. That is, group stops periodically to critique its own performance as part of the members' efforts to develop effective team working skills. We may observe the gradation and see where they stand in that particular area and record it. So, a team evaluation form would have a comprehensive facility to record the performance of the team in different areas or traits with proper gradation in each area so that we get a clear picture of how they performed. So far we have seen the team evaluation methodology. We also would like to know a bit about the product development planning. As we know, nothing can be successfully completed without proper plan. So is the case with the product development process. Fortunately, there are certain tools available for carrying out the product development planning. These tools are typically needed to predict the cycle times, costs, and labor requirement within an accuracy of anything like 10%. The planning process essentially consists of certain systematic steps. Some steps answer the questions such as like what is being done. So tasks are clarified in these steps. The next set of steps answer the question of when it's going to be completed. So scheduling is what is answered. Whereas the other set of questions, another set of steps are going to explain where it will be done, equipment and facilities. Finally, the last set of steps address as to how the activity is going to be completed, such as like people, material, facility and equipment costs are elaborated. So what are the various basic planning and scheduling tools available to the product development teams? There are several of them, but some of them are very popular. So let's look at them. One is called as the Gantt chart. The Gantt is after the inventor, so it is credited to him. The Gantt chart normally is recommended to be used for small projects, whereas the critical path method CPM is meant for large projects. But PERT, Program Evaluation and Technical Review, also is suitable for large projects. The tool of Gantt chart is a basic planning and scheduling tool. The tool of Gantt chart is a basic planning and scheduling tool, and it's named after the inventor Henry Gantt. A Gantt chart essentially consists of bar charts where the vertical axis shows the activities and the horizontal axis shows the time. So in that scenario, so there is one vertical axis, there is a horizontal axis. This shows the time and this shows the activities. So there will be multiple activities which are laid out or marked on the vertical axis. Activity number 1, activity number 2, 3, 4 and so on and so forth. And the horizontal axis, the time axis, helps us put a bar for activity number 1 based on how long it's going to take. So we see that we are able to put a bar for the activity number 1 as to how much time it takes. Similarly, we may put one more bar for the activity number 2. It might take shorter period of time, and also it need not start always here. After the activity number 1 is completed, in relation to the activity number 1, where the activity number 2 is expected to start. So if we try to exercise that kind of a decision making, then we see that activity number 2 may start at a point where it is having relationship with activity number 1. So there are two possibilities. One is that activity number 2 cannot start until activity number 1 is finished, right? And then in that case, it may have to be laid out, it may have to be indicated in this way based on how long it takes. That means activity 1 has to be finished before activity 2 can start. Alternatively, activity 2 may have certain overlap with activity 1. That means it can be started after some amount of activity 1 has been completed. In such cases, it would have probably started somewhere here. So the relationship between activity 1 and 2 are very clearly depicted. Since we are talking about here quantitative axis, that is quantitative depiction as to where, so this overlap time is very clearly spelled out. Similarly, activity 3 may wholly be completed towards the end of the activity 2. That means both activity 2 and 3 can be completed at the same time, whereas activity 3 takes shorter time, but it cannot be completed unless activity 2 has been finished up to a certain level, and then it can be parallelly completed, would be indicated in this way. So a Gantt chart essentially would have bars, graphical representation in the form of bars of each activity with respect to how long it's going to take, what is its starting point in comparison to the other activities. So therefore, since it encapsulates all these features, Gantt chart is a very useful planning tool for product development process. Typically, the time may be indicated in weeks based on which sector of the product we're talking about. We have already mentioned about different sectors of the product, such as like electronic items, computers, automobiles, Xerox machines, and so on and so forth. The cycle time for each of these, and that is the time the product development takes in each of these sectors, is different. So based on how long it takes and what amount of work can be completed in a minimal unit of time, such as like a week or a day or an hour, we need to appropriately choose the unit of time here. Something that takes about a year probably would qualify to be relegated with a unit of time of 1 week. Something that gets finished in a day obviously needs to have minutes as minimum period of time or countable unit. Ultimately, the bottom line or the principle here is that the time unit should not be either too coarse or too fine. The chart also can be imparted with additional information, such as like who is the team leader, the task responsibility, and the resource information can also be embedded in this. But the basic information consists of activities, when do they start, when do they end, and how they are relatively juxtaposed with respect to the other activities. A typical Gantt chart can be shown in this fashion. So the product development process involves the project definition. In this particular Gantt chart, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that is a chunk of time or a period of time consisting of 2 days, Monday, Tuesday together as one, and Wednesday, Thursday one, Friday, Saturday is one, Sunday is the weekend, and so on. So the minimum time here is consisting of 2 days. So project definition is one activity under which we list sub-activities of investigation and planning and customer input. Within these further sub-activities of mission statement preparation, task clarification, task list preparation, Gantt chart preparation, business case, design driver identification, background research. Similarly, customer input, we will talk about that. Customer input in turn involves certain activities, the first being interviewing of the customers, and then collecting of the customers' needs, and then developing what we call the house of quality, and then target specification, development of the specifications for the product to be designed as derived from the customer's needs. So these activities, and then after the project definition has been completed, is the time for trying to realize the specifications. So actual design process begins with the conceptual development, that is development of the multiple number of conceptual designs, and then trying to do the embodiment and then give the detailed design, within which each of which there are sub stages. So we are trying to depict here, for example, a bar for investigation and planning activity. That means here the bar encapsulates already whatever the individual periods of time that each sub-activity might take. Then we are putting here how much time it takes for customer input. As you can see here, the customer input bar did not start until project definition bar ended, which indicates that you cannot start talking to the customers until we clearly have the mission statement defined and the background research, identification of the design drivers, Gantt chart itself or activity is Gantt chart preparation, preliminary preparation is completed. Similar is the case with the product, the aspect of concept development cannot be done until customer input is fully processed and converted into technical specifications. Once the conceptual design development process begins, that is the design process begins, it is possible to do the embodiment design even before we complete the process of developing different possible conceptual designs. Therefore, there is an overlap here. And even though conceptual design process has ended, you may have, for example, two dozens of conceptual designs, all of which or each of which satisfies the technical specifications of the customer's needs. But the embodiment may continue. In the process, the concept selection would have occurred. That means the embodiment, though initially may be done for more than one conceptual design, after some time we may try to do it only for one or two. So the embodiment design itself may give a clue to knock out some of the conceptual designs. We will look at this aspect more as we progress into the course. And the embodiment design and the process, here there's an overlap. As you can see here, it starts here and then ends at the same time when embodiment design ends. And the detailed design is started somewhere here with an overlap of this much and is concluded here. And the prototyping, fabrication is not supposed to be begun until the detailed design is completed. Therefore, there is no overlap. Whereas an activity of proof of concept prototyping, which is a prototyping that we normally undertake when the proof of concept is completed. It's not necessary that the final product is ready, but we are allowed to do prototyping once the proof of concept is complete. Therefore, it's standalone activity which is being done even before the complete detailed design is completed. And then the prototyping, full prototyping of the final design is done here, and finally comes the alpha prototype, which is an improved prototype over fundamental prototype, improved version, and the final prototype. You can see there 1, 2, 3, 4. So normally a maximum of 6 times you are allowed to produce the prototype in the typical product development process, but not more than that, because that's really a wastage of material and time. So a Gantt chart, therefore, once prepared and kept in front of the team members, has the potential to give a relative idea as to when each activity is starting and when it is ending. We define here the task lists. These task lists are useful tools to support the Gantt charts as well as improve the Gantt charts. The task lists may be prepared out of the Gantt charts by simply taking the tables of activities. The task list also may state the deadlines, the team members' responsibilities for the task, a checkbox to fill in when the task is completed. There are 2 types of task lists: overall project list and weekly lists. So once the Gantt chart is prepared, these task lists take a chunk of information from the Gantt chart and make a smaller list so as to be distributed or to be given to individual members who are responsible for the activities. So the master Gantt chart therefore can be converted into small pieces of information, each of which is called the task list, where the task list would have additional information of who is supposed to conduct that activity, whose responsibility it is, and what are the deadlines, and so on, and also a checklist to be checked by the person who is carrying out the activity may be distributed. It's something like that we have the model, solid model of the entire assembly of the product, and each component's orthographic views are further extracted with clear information of the dimensions, tolerance, and so on, and given to each person who actually is responsible for machining or forming or manufacturing, fabricating that particular component. So it's something similar to that. There is also a role to be played by the upper and senior managers of the management team in the product development process. The upper management plays a very important role in the new product development activities of any company, because the team members themselves do not take management decisions. A good product development process depends on a well orchestrated and cooperative interplay between the senior management section and the cross functional teams who are actually conducting the product development process. Each group is going to act within the framework of a well constructed product development process in which the respective roles are very clearly defined and articulated. So, this management effort to define this role and then articulation is very important. Therefore, there is a clear role, very important role to be played by upper and senior management in the product development process. Some of the roles, some of the important aspects of these roles of the senior management are listed out here. For example, communicates the company's vision. So the company's vision is typically formed by taking several other aspects of the company's propounded activity, which may or may not become the point of discussion for the product development team of one particular product. But how seriously and in which direction the product development process has to be steered with respect to that particular component is definitely connected to overall vision of the company. So it is essential that the senior management communicates directly, communicates enough about the company's vision to the. For example, talk about a two-wheeler manufacturing company. If the component that the product development team is focusing to design in this version is the brake system for rear wheel, then there may be a vision formed, the braking system, by the upper management towards a particular direction. For example, they want to become the market leaders as far as the brakes of the vehicle are concerned. They will be the best ones at the least possible cost, but at the same time best quality. In such cases, they may even take a decision to adopt certain technologies. So this vision has to be connoted to, is to be intimated to the product team. From time to time, such things have to be informed. So senior management has a role to play there. Similarly, defining the product development process, how they look at it, how they see it as. Also, the senior management is responsible for preaching the importance of speed. What kind of a lead time they're expecting. Because the product development team may always be interested to bog themselves down into details because they always are perfectionists. But at the same time, the management always looks for a targeted point of time. So speed becomes important in the overall enterprise activity because the product has to go to the customer in a tangible period of time. Whereas the product development team, individuals as well as the group, are bogged down in details and they want to be perfectionists. So there is a kind of a match, a balance between the quality, level of implementation of features, and the time within which it goes to the market need to be properly balanced. So role of the management becomes very important here. There are certain barriers that keep coming in, which are something that the team members themselves cannot resolve. They are certain extraneous aspects, and they can best be solved only by the managers. So in such cases, it needs intervention. Creating of the cross-functional teams for projects of strategic importance, the responsibility rests with the senior management. They have to identify people who can be brought into the team from time to time. They need to empower the team to take certain decisions without which they cannot successfully function. The portfolio, product portfolio, as well as team members' portfolios need to be managed by the senior management. And also, senior project management team may play an excellent role in freezing certain product features early enough so that they don't have to be further investigated. They become sort of like a mandatory features in the product. Creativity also can be nurtured by the senior management by reducing the bureaucracy and enabling them to take decisions, providing the necessary tools, and also explaining them the marketplace needs after identifying them correctly, providing of the resources, and championing of the major projects, take the critical decisions, bold decisions to fund them, bring the funding, bring the financing, and lead towards major projects so that there's enough motivation in the team members about making something big and coming up with something that is substantial. All these are the roles that the senior management only can play, the team members cannot play. Therefore, there's a clear-cut role that is defined for upper management or the senior management of the company. So far, we have discussed several aspects of the product development process, team building activity, and so on. So we summarize here what all we discussed. The product development process tools, they seek to enhance the creativity and imagination of the design team, removing potential barriers. Modern product development results in a dichotomy between design and manufacturing, which is always a problem because it results in a walled approach, results in increased lead times, whereas concurrent engineering approach can improve the efficiency and enable the product design to be completed more efficiently because it demolishes those walls, enables people to work together right from the beginning. The functional skills are only the first step towards the product development process. Team members must also assume a number of roles that relate entirely to the team by being multifunctional in nature. It is essential to know each team member's traits, skills, and way of thinking by using scientific methods such as like Myers and Briggs type indicator MBTI, which basically does the personality typing, and it should be used for assistance in the team development process in reorganizing and utilizing personality differences. The MBTI, however, should not be used to pigeonhole or label a person that he is that only but not this, which is very dangerous. Rather, it should be used to advance the team. A common denominator of effective teams is the commitment. The commitment is one single character and is a common denominator no matter which type of team we talk about. Maybe a team, cricket team, or football team, or a product development team. In addition to commitment, consensus reaching ability and communication are the other traits which are characteristic of successful teams, no matter which area we talk about. Team building and evaluation exercises are very important for product development teams. They must be exercised before actual product development process begins so that there is an excellent progress in the activity thereafter because of the excellent communication and team activity. Product planning can be done by different tools. Some of the tools that are at our disposal are the Gantt chart, more advanced ones being PUT and CPM for bigger projects. These must be completed as early as possible and must be evaluated often, despite the fact that it could be tedious and difficult, because unless it is a planned effort, there is going to be haywire and lack of direction. Task lists are individual smaller chunks of information extracted from Gantt chart or the PERT and CPM, which help us set tangible milestones and define the individual responsibilities of the people and reminded with the help of the task list. They provide these task lists, they provide clear measures of the success because we are tagging each person with his responsibility by providing a task list to him, which is a subset of the bigger plan, which is a Gantt chart or PERT or CPM. Thank you very much.